Hello, screenwriters, and welcome to Writing for Screens. Today's episode, Ask Me Almost Anything. When do you know you can start writing? My name is Glenn Gers. I am the Chief Operating Everything at Writing for Screens, a channel that I have put together to try to gather some of the skills and tools and insights that I got in a 25-year career writing for TV and movies. I had to teach myself most of it, and in order to pass that stuff on as I am going out of the business, I created these videos on this channel. There is here's a little screenshot of the main page of the channel. I urge you to look at it because these at the bottom of that picture, you'll see some playlists. This is a close-up of those. The first 3 playlists on my channel, as you scroll down, are 50 10-ish minute lessons. Brief lessons, very focused, full of all sorts of ideas for you to try out for yourself. The topic of each channel is the title. It is also in the thumbnail, so you can just scroll down, nice big colorful words for you to see. Genre, flashbacks, character, dialogue, all sorts of different topics. 50 of them are there for you 24/7 for free. Please take a look, because anything I'm going to answer here, I'm probably going to have already said in one of those videos. Once I got done with those, I decided to try a new thing, which was live streams every Wednesday from 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time Zone. I come to you and I'll do a live stream on a different topic. Today's topic is about when you're ready to start. After that, I'll throw it open to the mob for the madness that always ensues, always comes up with good questions. But first, let me do a few... The reason that I am doing this is in this way, with these scattered lessons, there is no system. There is no right way to do things. There is not a formula which you can follow to write. You can't. You have to figure out. You have to make your own path. Every artist in the history of the world has had to figure out what kind of work they want to do, what kind of work they are capable of doing, what kind of work the world wants to pay for, what to do if the world isn't paying. All of that stuff is individual to you. So you have to figure it out for yourself. No one can tell you. There's lots of ideas out there. There's lots of rules. Check them all out. Check out mine. If they help you, use them. If they don't, throw them away and figure out what works for you. That is my biggest lesson. Not to say I don't have a lot of other things to say. Let me give you some hellos. Hello, Sonia and Feng and Alex. Yay! Oh, I'm glad to see that you are looking forward to it. Hello, Susan. Have I met you before? Welcome. And tomorrow, kiddo. Good morning from Australia, to Australia. Speaking of Australia, hi Donna, good to see you. Meaning Bites and Burgundy. Hello everyone. Michael, hello, hello. Oh gosh, we got a good crowd today. Hello Sanchez Pablo. Why not a video how to watch a movie as a screenwriter? Well, because no one ever asked. That's a good question. Let's get into that. Okay. Hello Ming. And Robert, ahoy, indeed. Hello, Doreen. Deliver the moment. Yes, a new, inspired a new revision to the opening scene in my book, and I'm happy with it. Thank you. Yes, Deliver the Moment was something I was talking about. It's actually a quote from a book by John Gregory Dunn called Monster, which is about his experiences writing for Hollywood, and he was quoting a famous producer, I believe it was Scott Rudin, who tended to say over and over, deliver the moment, deliver the moment. And as annoying as that was, I found it was actually really good advice. How about Family Guy's episodes? Do they help for screenwriting? Okay, I believe they do. I will talk about that. Hello, Pelicans. Okay, so I've already got 2 questions to answer once I get done with my topics that I'm bringing in. So let me get to those, and then we will get to your questions. The first question was asked a while ago in comments, actually. When do you know you can start writing? And I apologize to the person who wrote this. I did not write down your name. I just wrote down your question. So your question was, when do you know you can start writing? I've been developing an outline and outlining a feature for a while now. I've watched your shorts on outline and essential questions and many more, and I feel it's time to start fading in, but I want to be sure I haven't missed anything. This is a good question. A lot of people ask a variation on this question, and the answer you're probably going to guess, for those of you who have heard me before, the answer is it's up to you. There is no checklist before you go. Everyone is different. And the main thing is to recognize that if you are feeling like you want to start writing, by all means, grab hold of that feeling and ride it as long as it lasts. I have had this too. If something comes to you, if you start to picture it, if words start to come to you, write them down. It is crazy to ever say, no, I'm not ready to do that. If it's coming into your head, you are ready to do at least that part of it. Because here's the tricky thing. There is no formal list of steps that you take in order to write a script. There are formal lists of steps that companies or people who are paying you sometimes require in order for you to do that job because you are an employee of theirs. And for instance, they don't want you to go write a script without showing them an outline because they don't want you to write a script that is full of things that they wish you hadn't done. So because you are an employee, they will say, please write an outline first. Here's the secret. If you are lucky enough to be in that situation where someone is paying you and they say, no, we want an outline first, but you're all full of ideas, write them down. Start writing whatever you want to start writing. Just don't show it to them. It's not a big deal. You're allowed to write whenever you want. The thing that will usually happen, and everyone is different, but for many people, you feel like you're ready to start writing and then you'll hit some stumbling block, some small difficulty that you hadn't anticipated, and sometimes it will make it hard to continue writing. And that's okay, because look at what you got so far. Even if that's just a couple of lines, or if it's a couple of scenes, or half the script, whatever it is, great. You wrote it down, save it, go back to the issues that you are wondering about in the outline, in the notes. That's fine. Here's the thing. When you say, I want to be sure I haven't missed anything. Of course you've missed things. If you haven't missed anything, then the script is done. There's always going to be things you didn't think of until you're in the middle of it. That's the only way you will think of them, is to get into the middle of it. So I personally like to outline before I start writing. But if for some reason something magically came to me as like, oh, a run of dialogue or a description or something, write it down. Sometimes I write that down, as I've said, in the outline. Like if I can see a certain scene, I'll just write everything I can think of into my outline space. For those of you who have not seen them, I would advise, so that you understand what I'm talking about, I have two videos. One is called Why Outline, and the other is called How to Outline. And I will put links to these videos if I put that little thumbnail up there. That means after this episode, I will go and put a link to that video in the description so that you could just easily get to it. But anyway, my personal outline form allows me, if I were to suddenly think of some dialogue or description, some scene action or whatever, to just put it in the outline. And then later I cut it out, paste it into the script, and all of a sudden, poof, I got some rough draft. So that is my most urgent message is, don't worry about it. I think one of the most important things for you to understand is that most people think the process is like this. This is what writing is. You get the outline, and then you get that just right, and then you do the first draft, and then the second draft, and then you do a little polish, and the next thing you know, you've got a script. Sometimes that can happen, and certainly you want to have a basic sense of that, especially if you're working professionally. However, this is the reality of what that line looks like when you're actually writing. You're gonna be sort of going around, and sometimes you'll hit a part where you're like, oh, I have to stop and outline. I thought I knew this, but in fact, this scene isn't making sense. I need to look at the outline, or I need to just analyze this scene, or go back and think about the question. So sometimes you'll write a while and you'll be like, oh, you know what? I have no idea why this thing is working that way, and I have to stop and look at it. And you go out to the outline, and then you go back. Sometimes you do a whole rough draft, but then you stop and you kind of analyze it, and then you do another draft. That's just the way it goes. The truth is, creative work is messy. There is not a flow chart that people are going to say, you have to do step A before you do step B. Some people don't do it that way. Every project, even if you have a pattern that you follow, every project is going to be slightly different. So make room in your process for the mess. If you start, if you are the sort of person who needs to just write it without outlining, without thinking about it, you explore as you go on, fine. When you're done with that, you're probably going to have to go back and look at it, and there's going to be things you learned as you went along, which means you're going to have to change things. Whether or not you do that in outline form or not, you are mentally stepping out of the moment and analyzing the situation, and doing a rewrite. That's normal. It's healthy. It's great. There is nothing wrong, even if you just do some and then you stop. That happens a lot. For me, I don't feel usually too confident of what the scene is about until I have done the outline. So therefore, I don't usually write that much, but if something comes to me, I write it. I like to outline everything before I go, but I know, and I can tell you, you've seen me do it, and I will continue to talk about this. No matter how much I may have solved in the outline in great detail, when it comes down to it, when you start writing the script, things will come to you. Problems will come to you. Ideas will come to you that change things. That's part of the process. That's why it looks like this. So what I would say is, you can always stop. Sure, if you feel like you're ready to start writing, write as far as you can, and then when you can't write anymore, when you've finished a draft, when you've gotten stuck, switch it up, go back to outlining, whatever. It all works out just fine. So the other question that was asked, and I will get to your comments and things like that. Just let me take care of these two topics this one was asked a few weeks ago by David H. in the chat right here, and he asked, is it considered common for a screenwriter to present a screenplay creation to other professional scriptwriters to seek help in the shaping phase? So one thing you should know is, if I don't get to your question now, I tend to try and grab a little screenshot of all the questions so that I can answer them again weeks later. Sorry for the delay, David H. The answer is yes. Is it common? Everybody's different. I personally find myself getting confused if I talk to people about what I'm doing. Usually. Sometimes I will run through something for somebody. I know other people who need that experience of talking it out with others. I would say that it is more of a talking things out than a presenting. This may just be a language issue. This may be just a question of how we phrase this, but very few people will show work to others. So sometimes there are people who do, but usually people just talk it out. They say, "Hey, can you come talk this out?" Even in professional TV show situations or movie situations, sometimes they will do what they call convening a room. They will hire people or ask them as a favor to come and work together in a work session to talk out issues on a project that's underway or about to begin. For me, the issue is really it's going to be a matter of personal choice. Some people do it, some people don't. It depends on how much you get from other people's thoughts and how much you feel like you need to sharpen your own without hearing confusing alternate versions. Because everyone who looks at an idea will come up with very different things. Now, for some people, that's exciting. It's like, ooh, I want to gather in all the possible ways that other people could see it. I like to sort it out for myself, but that's me. I would say the main thing is show it to people you trust and know personally. Do not show your work or talk about your work to strangers for a couple of reasons. The first one is simply you don't know them. You don't know what they're going to do with it. If you tell them an idea, they could take it. They can do that. So you want people you trust. And second of all, you want to know what their agenda is, what their style is. You tell somebody who's like a diehard formula follower who has some book that they learned from, and they're going to tell you, you have to do this, or this is how I see it. You need to know that that's how they think. Otherwise, you'll be like, well, I see things differently. I don't agree with that book or that theory or that whatever thing they like. So the main thing is you need to know the person that you are sharing with. Furthermore, I would suggest that you write down what you do have for yourself and put it in an envelope, put a copy of it, print it, put it in an envelope, mail it to yourself, and don't open it. That is legally, and I do want to make clear, this is not legal advice, but I have been told that that helps prove your ownership of whatever you do own, whatever you have thought, should it become a legal issue. The other thing you can do is go to the Writers Guild website and register the stuff that you have, even if it is just a summary, like a treatment or an outline. You can do that. Let's see if I can find the little... Sorry, I don't see... Oh, here we go. Boom. These are two places in America, in the US, that you can go to, copyright.gov, but that's pretty expensive, or WGA.org, which allows you to register for about a quarter the price of the copyright. The Writers Guild registration doesn't last as long as a copyright, but it's a good thing to do. Anyway, so those are my main advices. Don't share your creative work with strangers. Think about and know and trust the people you do share. But if you find it interesting, stimulating, sure, do it. Common, I don't know, not terribly, but I it depends. It's like there are some people who like to work collaboratively, and others, like me, get emotionally drained by that. I guess I'm just introverted. Okay, let me do a couple of quick hellos and get to some comments and questions. Hello, Max. Hey, Gene, good to see you. Hope all is well. Fung says, I recently started to watch Martin Scorsese's must-watch film list. Do you have any idea why the list is full of tragedies? Well, I mean, it's his list. It's a list he likes. He's I think many people feel that that serious, dark stories are more important or valuable than comedies. Well, also just Scorsese is not a big comedy guy. He's made a couple. After Hours, I think, is brilliant. King of Comedy is hard. That's like right on the edge of not being a comedy. But his comedies are dark. But what are you going to do? So it's his taste. The answer to that is simply, it's his taste. Okay, David. David Wright, hello, says the biggest enemy is procrastination. It can be. The War of Art book by Scott Pressfield says you have to be a professional before you get paid anything. Okay, that is true. The thing that and this is one of those catch-22 impossible circles, but yes, you need to be capable of professional behavior before you get hired, because otherwise when you get hired, there aren't that many what you'd call entry-level writing positions. So therefore, when you get hired, the people who are hiring you have a lot on the line. And if you are then to say like, okay, cool, explain to me how this works, they're going to say, we need somebody who knows how this works. The problem, of course, is that nobody tells you how it works before. This is getting a little better now. When I started out, that no one told any, there was no information. Now there are podcasts, there are places that have behind the scenes interviews, and so you get a lot of stuff. Let me urge you to check out Backstory online magazine. It is well worth the price of its subscription. Great interviews there. And also the same person, Jeff Goldsmith, who does that magazine, does a podcast called The Q&A with Jeff Goldsmith. Obviously, Film Courage has a lot of, maybe too many interviews. Like it's a lot to process. So I would say those are good. On Story by the Austin Film Festival Screenwriting Conferences, they have a podcast that is excellent. And also, I'll have to see, the Screenwriting Life podcast is another excellent one. So these are all places where you can learn a bit about what it is like to be a professional before you actually are getting paid to do stuff. Because as David Wright points out, it helps if you understand what the job is. For instance, that the job is to be told, we love your work. Now we want you to change the central character into something else. That will happen. That's part of the job. It is expected that screenwriters will just make changes on the whim of thousands of people. As far as biggest enemy is procrastination, maybe that is true. I have to think about that. There's other enemies lurking out there. But hello, Wolf Powers. Good to see you. Okay, Max says he can relate to me talking about the different spirals and circles to say I end up editing before I've even finished. Different people are different. I know some people who need to get it just right before they move on. I personally find that I get stuck that way, that I will end up perfecting something without having a greater sense of the big picture. And as a result, sometimes I will get something just right, and then I'll make discoveries later in the story and my just right thing is no longer right. So I like to get a messy draft done and sort of like keep a level of messiness before I go back and make anything just right. Okay. My fan club says, I've heard about the cause and effect technique. Write the final image of the movie and then find the cause of it, then do it all the way back to the opening images. I saw it in Film Courage. Have you tried? No. But that doesn't mean it's not worth... I do believe it helps to have an idea of the ending, maybe the last line, maybe the last image, maybe just the last event or action. I find that helpful to have, because that decision, as I've often said, influences all the things that lead to it. I would say with any of these methods where it's like, oh, do it this way, it's a good thing to have in your toolbox to try. See how it does for you. The cause and effect thing is complex. The idea of cause and effect. Ideally, it is bringing you to ask questions. How does this person get to this place? What were they trying to do? What was in the way? So you're going to ask the essential questions, which is why I wouldn't say it's a bad idea. I would just say I don't like to be so formulaic. I just don't think there's one way to do it. If you're stuck and you don't know what to do, or you feel like you don't quite have grasp of something, sometimes thinking about the ending, especially the ending image, or the ending scene, or the ending emotional choice, whatever it is, sure. Okay. Germany Football Rocks is asking, why is the German screenwriting books techniques in my native country, Germany, where the football rocks, seems a little different from the ones you are teaching in the US? Because they're different countries. A couple, I mean, obviously the educational theories and systems will be different in different countries, but also the business. Remember, these books on how to do these arts, when it comes to screenwriting, it's always a business as well. And the business is substantially different in the US than it is in other places. And so the understanding of how it works may be different in different places. I'm sure that in China and India, where they have substantial film industries, but they are very different. So you would need books that apply to the world that you are working in. So the answer is they're different because places are often different. Burgundy, side question to this question. Do you share stories, read scenes to your own partner or family to have their opinion? Do you involve your personal life in your professional life at all? Not really. I am happy to feel like my wife and my son are supportive and interested, but they're not doing what I do, so that their advice or opinions is going to be that of an audience, which means until it's done, I'm not sure that they can help. But mainly and this is just me personally, I find it difficult to hear other people's thoughts while I'm still figuring out things for myself. I feel too obligated to please other people. And I feel to just the things that cause my choices are invisible to other people. Like I am operating out of a mental plan and influences and goals that other people don't know. So, and this is always the case, by the way, we all are. Some people are just more, I guess, collaborative or flexible or stronger than I am in that they can hear and get things from people who have different views or different goals or different styles. I feel conflict then. I feel personally anxious. And so I've learned to just keep it to myself until I am absolutely sure I've made the choices I wanted to choose. Now, at that point, when I do show it to people, sometimes someone will say like, well, that part didn't make any sense. And sometimes I'll go, oh, because I was so stuck in my choices, I didn't realize that for other people it would feel that way. And then I'll rewrite it. But I personally, I talk about the general idea. And some days, like this morning, I was talking about yesterday, I discovered that one of the biggest problems I am having in the novel I am currently writing is transitions. The next novel live stream, I'll be talking about this. It's occurred to me that one of the hardest things for me right now in this novel is how I start a scene or a section, a chapter. It would be a chapter in the book. It would be a scene in a movie. I know how to do transitions in screenwriting like you wouldn't believe. I know how to get a scene started and how to end it. It's just natural at this point. And there are types of books where that style of coming in very late into a scene would work perfectly. But the particular voice of the novel I am using can't do that. It's a storyteller's narrating voice. There's a person telling you the story. And they wouldn't just jump in and say, the wind was whistling when, Harry got out of the car and looked around at the train station. That's just not how that voice is. He's telling a story of his experience, and he wouldn't jump quite that way. So I'm really having trouble with that. So this morning I was saying to my wife, I just realized I got to stop and actually study this issue of how you get into and out of scenes. So I'll report in from the front. I will say, this is what is on my mind, and she'll be like, cool that you discovered that. And then she goes to work and I go to work and we all just live our lives. Is that in times of my life when I have had relationships way back when with other artists, Honestly, it's been hard. It's too complicated. My wife is creative, but not about writing. I mean, she's not a writer, so therefore, what are you going to do? Hi there. Hi, TT. Um, okay. Gene, I am working on my novel. Problem is, as I read books of fiction that I am inspired by, I want to change my book to some extent. Should I force myself to write the original or allow myself to change? That is an excellent question. It does that absolutely applies when you're writing even a movie, because you'll see some other movie and you'll be like, ooh, they did this cool thing. I wanna do that. I personally feel all it depends on is the scale of the change. Like, if it's going to require a complete page one change, every single scene rewrite, you better be really sure it's worth it. If you really think it is and you don't mind doing that work, still, yeah, sure. I think that being influenced is part of it. But if you find yourself doing that and then later you read something else and then you want to change it again, that's troublesome. I feel like when you are writing and you read or see things, a part of your brain is fishing for material that will help you, like methods that work. And so if your unconscious clicks into one because you're reading something, great. That's wonderful. It depends. So the answer would be, you don't want to just be endlessly rethinking depending on what you saw last night or read. Excuse me. But yes, I believe you should, or don't read fiction. I know people who are like, if I'm writing fiction, I will only read nonfiction or something else. I find myself influenced by everything. So I try to read things that I think will influence me in a positive way. Hi there, Thumper. Sometimes I share an idea because I want the idea to be stolen. Neat. That is great. Good for you, Thumper. Yeah, I actually may end up doing the same thing here on the live stream. At a certain point, I may put out some of my unfinished things that I'm never going to finish myself. I don't know. We'll see. Hi, Alex. For an industry outsider like myself, is there any downside to publishing novelized versions of your scripts while you try to get them optioned or sold? I cannot imagine a single downside to that unless you publish it, unless there is a publishing contract with a publisher, which in some way limits what you can do with the underlying material. That seems weird, and I don't think that would happen usually, but it's just a thought. But no, in fact, if you write a script and then you want to make a novelization, as they called it, out of it, or a fiction version, and put it out there, that can only help, as far as I can tell. Very often, people will say, "Oh, I'd rather read the novel and then get someone to write the script." Then you can say, "I have a script." So I can't see an outside, a downside to doing that. Do remember, when you get advice online, when you see like interviews with people who are in the business saying like, "Oh, never, show your work because people will take it, or you'll damage the brand because it's been exposed," that's for them. If you're an outsider, you do whatever you want to do and you get whatever you want to get done to get in front of an audience. The more that you do that, frankly, I think the better. I mean, what if the novel is fairly popular? Then you can say, "Hey, this is a good story." That's there's a lot of industry thought goes into like, how do you release an idea? Do you let go, to have like teasers for a while and then you drop it? Or none of that matters to outsiders. Do what you do as best you can do for you, I believe. You're not in the game of manipulating, strategizing who's going to see what when. That's that's for agents and managers and producers to worry about when you're at the level where you're dealing with them. Before that, it is my opinion that you should do everything you can to show your work to as many people as possible all the time. But that's me. That is my opinion. Hello, Sealy Jack. Sealy Jack is a retired rugby player in Asia. Do you think I can transition to a screenwriter in Hollywood? It's very hard to transition to a screenwriter in Hollywood, even if you are a wannabe screenwriter in Hollywood. It's just hard. It's that you're looking at the narrowest of entry points. There are very, very few screenwriting professional opportunities in Hollywood, and the number of people who want those is enormous. So, if at all possible, see about the opportunities in wherever it is in Asia that you live, because the industry in Hollywood generally wants someone who lives in Hollywood and has experience working in Hollywood, as we discussed before, and understands the Hollywood system. If you want to take the time to learn that, cool. But it seems to me like, why not operate first where you are? Do I think you can do it? I think it is not impossible, but it is very, very difficult. Let's put it this way. If I said to you, I'm a casual rugby player here in California, do you think I can become a professional rugby player in Asia? I think you would say, it's hard. Professional is hard. Coming in after another career can be cool, but it's probably, my advice is always do what you can do where you are. Don't look for the permission of the teeny, teeny, teeny topmost option of success. Try to do the work you can do right away. If that is going well, that will lead you to opportunities that may bring you to Hollywood. But I wouldn't say, I need to be this. That's like saying I need to. I've talked before about the idea of if you wanted to be in politics in the United States, and you say, I need to be the president or a senator, like something where there's very, very few of them. And it's very, very hard to become that. Even if you're brilliant, it's just hard. So therefore to say, I'd rather be a mayor, a local politician, and get good at it, that's also your best way up. That's your best way in. So the answer is, can you transition to a screenwriter in Hollywood? Maybe. The way to do it is going to be not worry too much about that, but to build your professional strengths and credentials and skills at every intervening step. Okay. What is your professional opinion on a writer, me, writing multiple stories at once? Thanking you in advance. You are welcome, TR. And the answer is, my professional opinion is, it's a good idea as long as you aren't doing too many. And I speak from personal experience. I'm always thinking, every day I come up with a new idea, a new thing I want to do. So I've been around for 66 years. Let's take the first 10 out. So for 55 years, I have been coming up with a new idea every day. And I write them down and I work on them sometimes, but then they get frustrating, or I begin to have doubts that they are professional enough or interesting enough to the big business, or whatever it was that made me stop. I will set one aside and jump to another. At a certain point, you have jumped to so many that the pile of unfinished work will never get finished. Now, if you're okay with that, cool. I have learned to be okay with it, but I honestly feel a great deal of regret for the things where sometimes I outlined a whole movie. Once I even wrote a whole script and then didn't do anything with it. So I just have too many multiple stories going, or had them. And now it's too late. I can't do them. So I would say beware of overdoing the multiple at once. However, I personally almost always have had a couple going at a time, one of which is more advanced than the others. And so, like, I'll be writing the dialogue for one that I've already outlined. But then when I burn out on that, because I burn out very easily, I will say, okay, but in this afternoon, I don't want to not work. Maybe I can work on the outline for another story. That tends to help me. So that would be my answer to that. Watson, Neil, or Neil Watson, let me know, says, Akira Kurosawa films are always listed in all-time classic lists, but none of his films follow the Save the Cat beat sheet. Some even change protagonist halfway through the movie. I think I know where this is going. So that ellipsis was just, the obvious question is why? And the answer is because Save the Cat is just somebody's opinion. There are no rules that follow. Certainly Save the Cat. I mean, honestly, Save the Cat is one of the whacked out most books in the screenwriting pantheon. It got popular because one of the main reasons that Save the Cat got popular is there are one or two ideas, like saving the cat, that are quite useful. But the rest of that book is, frankly, just one guy's cranky notions. But it was also written in a very approachable style. And the screenwriting books before then were rather formal and forbidding and academic, like McKee and Vogel and even Sid Field to a certain. Like, there were a lot of very authoritarian and scholarly type approaches to screenwriting that were the published books. When Save the Cat came out that way, it was so quirky and conversational that people loved it. It was also like half the size as like Truby or McKee, which are all valuable. Okay, I'm not saying that these things are not valuable. However, as you will know if you have watched this video of mine, none of them are universally true. None of them are right for everyone. What's right for Michael Bay is not right for Akira Kurosawa. And therefore, there are different formulae. There are different rules that apply. The belief in the screenwriting how-to industry that you can get the optimized, correct answer and follow that is one of the worst things about the how-to screenwrite industry. There is much value in anybody's, well, there is some value in anybody's opinions about screenwriting, but none of them can lay proper claim to a universal solution to the problem of how do I write and what do I write? And the answer to that is because if someone could solve it, if someone could say, this is the actual formula, the art form would die, because all art forms are continuously evolving and changing and growing and finding new ways to express things in the world, which is constantly evolving and changing. So the idea that you're going to lock it down and say, this is the answer, that's silly. And that's why, honestly, all of those rules where they say you have to have this happen on page 38 and you have to have this happen in the third act, all of those rules were come up with in the 1980s till now. Kurosawa obviously was working mostly before then. He didn't have those books to look at, and if he did, he would have laughed because he operates on a different theory. So the answer is, and I sort of feel like it's funny, people ask me these things a lot. They'll say like, well, what about this theory or that theory, or how come this theory doesn't apply? And the answer is always the same, because these theories are just theories. And the same reason that the way that Shakespeare wrote and the way that Dickens wrote and the way that Dostoevsky wrote are drastically different, because there are many ways to write. Okay. It would be cool if you have a video on how to cut transition between every scene. Yes, that would be cool. Thank you. It's on my list. It's on my list of things to do. But transitions are, and one of the basic thing to know about transitions is, you don't want to tell people how to do it. Like, don't say dissolve or freeze or fade or anything. Just end your scene and start your next scene. The other thing is the famous maxim that William Goldman and other people have said is true, which is generally you want to come into any scene as late as possible with as little introduction. Just get right to it. And you want to get out as quickly as possible. You don't want to linger and have everyone saying goodbye at the end of a scene. Speaking of which, let me go back because Sanchez Pablo asked a good question, which is why not a video of how to watch a movie as a screenwriter? The answer to any why not this video question is I don't have time right now. I'm writing a book. I take an hour out once a week to do this. It takes me a few hours to prepare for one of these, and that's the best I can do. So it is on my list to do one of these on transitions or in now how to watch a movie as a screenwriter. But I will say the how to watch a movie, I kind of already did one. It was called Take Art Apart. And I urge you to watch that. I will put a link to it down below because, in fact, that's really what it's about. I'm saying the reason to watch things or study things, and also a method for just some ideas for when you watch a video as a screenwriter. The first thing you should do when you watch a movie is watch the movie. Just enjoy the movie. Be an audience. Be a person. The second time through, the third and fourth and fifth time too, which is what I would recommend, is if you're going to watch it with an eye to studying it, you have to go through it repeatedly. And when you do, you have to go through it analytically, which as an audience, you shouldn't be doing. You should always start as an audience. Okay, so by the way, let me alert you that we're heading towards the end of the hour, so I'm going to say stop asking questions. And if I don't have time to answer them, I will hopefully answer them later. Let's see. Okay, so where are we? Oh my gosh, you guys have said so many things. Michael is talking about outlining. He says, come short of the 90-page minimum. I ended up with 78 pages. You mean like your first draft or your outline? If your outline is 78 pages, that's a lot of outline. Not that I haven't done that, but if your first draft is short, that's fine. My first drafts are always short. I have had 60-page first drafts. It doesn't, because they're just the beginning. Then you spiral around, as I've said, you come back around, and every time you do one more circle and you're getting closer, one of the things you'll be doing if yours is too short is adding. How can what's missing? Do I need more scenes? Do I need more in the scenes? Do I want to double space some things and make it longer? Hello, Fragwagon. Finally finished my rough draft after a couple years slowly writing it. You're encouraging, go write something as always. Oh, you're welcome. Gosh, that's so nice. Thank you. I do think I have to say to myself, go write something like every day. How to avoid overwriting. I wrote a dialogue scene that lasted 21 pages. I would say the answer is, if that's how it's coming out, write 21 pages and then edit it, cut it. Think about breaking it into smaller scenes, trying to decide. The main way to avoid that is to think, what is the one thing more than anything else I need to accomplish in this scene or this dialogue? And then see, like, if you've got a 21-page version, see if you can go through and just like, what is the single section of that dialogue that you need most, and try cutting away everything else. Making copies. Don't destroy your work. Just make a copy and then play with it. It's either you're that or you're writing something that's a play. Maybe it's a play and you didn't know it. 21 pages of dialogue is a lot of dialogue. The other way to start to learn to not write too long, take scenes from your favorite stuff, whatever, movies, TV shows, watch them. This is, once again, it's like how to watch a movie, and watch it digitally and pause it at the beginning of a scene, and then transcribe. Don't buy a script. Don't even buy a transcript if you can. Actually take the time for yourself to type out what's happening and what they say and see how it translates. Like try and get a sense of how remarkably few words there are in almost any scene, even a big dialogue scene. It's probably only going to run 4 or 5 pages. Okay. Burgundy is asking a question of Jean. What exactly do you like about what you're reading? Maybe that's the thing you could pick your inspiration from. Yes, I suspect that Jean, that's what Jean is saying. The question is, she's saying, am I damaging my work by picking out this thing I like so much and being inspired by it? And my answer is no. You are never wrong to be inspired unless it's going to actually destroy what you were originally doing, in which case take that inspiration and put it in a new project. Okay. Now looking forward to advice on revision. I have already done a video on rewriting, in case you didn't know that. And also the screenwriting step-by-step playlist that you can find on my thing. There are sections to that. As I went through the process, I did do rewriting. I can't remember exactly what numbers it is, but somewhere either the first or the last video has a breakdown of which episodes are outlining, which are first draft, and which are rewriting. So you can find that. Jean says, to learn transitions, I look to Dostoevsky. I think it may be because he wrote his novels in serial form. People think he was sloppy, but not really. That's true. And to a certain extent, I would use Dostoevsky, but he's writing in a different, a 19th century, or my voice, my character is very 20th century. So I don't know that he would write. He may have read Dostoevsky and may be slightly influenced, but I think that Dostoevsky may be a little too wordy for my guy. If Casablanca was written today and got sent to an executive desk, do you think it would ever get made? No. In fact, we know that it wouldn't, because somebody did that. Somebody about, I guess, maybe 10 years ago now, took Casablanca, changed the title page, made up a title for it, submitted it, and it got rejected. So yes, that is good. Okay, Michael asks, do you give credibility to paid readers who claim they did coverage for producers? This is a big topic. The answer is, in general, I would not pay anyone to read my work. There are enough free sites where people will give you their opinions for nothing. And mainly you want to try and meet people who you can exchange ideas with, not just submit for coverage. Even when you are a professional, coverage sucks. I remember many times when my agent would send something out for coverage, and if she found out what the coverage was, she would often tell me. She said once or twice, like when they had physical scripts, somebody returned the script with the coverage still attached. And ouch, it's just painful. Coverage is a weird thing because you don't know the values of the person that you are getting read by, and you certainly don't know the skill level of that person. Some readers are fabulous and some are not. And the truth is, what you're doing is essentially showing your work to a stranger and then weighing their opinion as if it's important to you. And it's not. There is no universal industry knowledge that these people have that you don't. There's tons of knowledge, and more of it is out there in podcasts and interviews and panel discussions. And it's also changing constantly. Honest to God, everything is changing so fast. But the main thing is, reading a script is a matter of opinion. And the number of stories of scripts that were rejected and writers that were condemned for work that later got incredibly great responses from the audience or the industry are so numerous it's not even worth thinking about. There's just no way that anyone's opinion is that valuable. Don't pay for it unless you have a lot of money to spare. Even then, submit it to festivals, submit it to contests where they give you a little bit of feedback, and at least then you're in the contest and you might get a little feedback. Overall, I would just say feedback comes from people reading your work that you know, that you meet. And if you don't know anyone in the industry, start joining communities online or seeing about if there's a local film festival or a theater group or a college, whatever. Just don't pay people to read your work. That's my personal opinion. And I feel badly because I have friends who make their living off of that. And when the only reason that I have ever taken money is because I am intending to actually interact with the person. I would never read something, write out an opinion, and just give it to them and says, "Where's my money?" If I charge money for someone, it's because I'm planning to spend an hour talking with them, learning about their intention and trying to explain my ideas. If you want to pay someone for that, that might be worthwhile. Depends. Hi, Alex Alexis. You probably already covered this, but how do you keep the flame of what excited you initially about an idea alive? Actually, I have done an entire one of these live streams about this. So I am going to, I don't remember the title of it. It's in the Ask Me Anythings. If you go through the list of Ask Me Anythings, but I will try and find it and put a link. I'm just writing down a note to look for that. I will put a link in the description shortly. When I stop doing this, please, no more comments or questions. Except bye. But anyway, Alex, look in the description about 10-15 minutes after we're done here, and I will put a link. There is an Ask Me Anything, which is essentially how do you keep your enthusiasm alive? It's a great question. I gave it a great answer already. Yes, about Casablanca. It is important to remember that nobody knew when they were making Casablanca that they were making Casablanca. They thought, oh, we're making another movie. It's kind of a mess. They were rewriting it when they were doing it. There's a whole book, I believe by Algene Harmetz, which is about the making of Casablanca. By the way, those making of books, they're very useful and interesting. The Devil's Candy is really good. Spike Lee published the journals he kept for some of his early projects. They're fabulous. The one for Do the Right Thing is great. The one for She's Gotta Have It is great. Okay. Arturus R. I am writing a through-line story. 2 passengers on the plane having a conversation. One of them telling the other multiple number of stories about his job. Would it be interesting? It could be. The natural objection that most people in the industry would be that it's very rare for a movie in which one person is just telling the other person's stories, or even people having a debate of just two characters. That's very, very hard to make into popular entertainment that is going to make a lot of money, which is what the industry calls for. So you're talking about essentially an art film, at least in America. It can be done. My Dinner with Andre is one. There was a movie recently with Tilda Swinton and Idris Elba in which there was a storytelling component, but they would go into the story. So there were these fabulous adventures with it. Like each story was a little short film. So the answer is, would it be interesting? It will be interesting if you can make it interesting, but essentially you're writing a play. And the point is, why not write it as a play? It's much easier to get plays put on, or write it literally as a story. Okay. Watson says, the funniest thing is that my screenwriting teacher in my university told me every movie in the world followed the Save the Cat beat sheet. Well, that teacher, and I hesitate to trash people, but that teacher is just so wrong that my head is kind of exploding a little. People should not tell you stuff like that. It's wrong. Every every person who comes up with a theory like Save the Cat, Truby, McKee, they all spend a lot of time looking at movies that were made before they wrote their book and saying, look how this follows my formula. Very often they're kind of working hard to wrangle that. But the truth is, there's no formula that every movie follows. Or there just isn't. There is none. Poof, boom. I say it. I'll stand by it. There is no formula. The only thing that I have found universal, and this is actually still something you could get around, I believe everything has a beginning, middle, and end. That is universal in the sense that almost everything does. Now and then you'll find something which is created without that, although even if you were to do like a daily TikTok serialized movie that had, it would eventually end, and whenever you started would be the beginning. So it's gonna have a beginning, middle, and end. That's the only universal I can think of. Okay, seriously, no more questions. Being an outsider looking to build up a network and contacts, would you recommend IMDb Pro to identify industry people to send query letters? If so, would you know what titles to look for? That's a good question. And the answer is actually I would recommend. I mean, IMDb Pro costs money, and I try not to recommend things that cost money. But in fact, if you are going to try to contact people, it's hard to do. It's hard to find out how to contact them. IMDb Pro, at least somewhat, has job titles and office addresses and stuff like that. You're still going to get most companies saying, we don't want to hear from you unless you're coming to us through an agent. But yes, IMDb Pro is, if you can afford that money, that yearly subscription or monthly subscription, there is valuable information in there. Very often it's not up to date. Very often people forget to oh, he quit the company 3 months ago. We haven't changed IMDb Pro. But still, it's not bad. It's not bad. Okay. Okay. Nares. Hello, Nares. Oops, sorry. To add to writing multiple stories at once, as I find myself with countless Word docs of different ideas over the years, those failed stories can be a huge resource as you write your next story. Yes, this is true. I have done a video on this, which I called Brainstorming and Scrap Piles. All right, writing it down so I can put the link in the description down there, but that video is about this very same concept, which is if you have an idea, but you're already writing something, make what I call a scrap pile, which is definitely, if you get an idea, write it down and put it somewhere that's with all your other ideas and put it in the form that you most can advance it from when you get around to it. Yes, also, right. Depends on what the job is. The question of what was the interesting number of stories about his job. Although Perkindy, I will say, you know what? You'd be surprised. The job could have been. I see your winky emoji. Fair enough. Good. Yeah, I mean, if the job is delivering the mail. Honestly, there was a movie called Il Postino about that. Okay. Oh, that's nice. Thank you, Alex. Okay, good. Nice denim shirt. I appreciate your... Hello, Anshul. Anshul likes to comment on my clothes, and I appreciate that. I do try to dress for you guys. Stephen Crane made me sober. Yeah, Stephen Crane. Yeah, burned out fast, but very great. The stories are about fights, seduction, feeling, words. I just wonder how to end the book. Well, that's the thing. Okay, this is the thing. If you are doing the form of your story is one person telling the other person's stories, each story must have a story, but there also must be a relationship between the two people who are on screen in your story telling this story or asking these questions. There's got to be some story to the conversation. If you are using the frame of somebody telling stories, there is the stories within that, but then the frame itself has to have a story about what they are getting from each other, or what they are doing to each other. What is the point of this conversation? Okay. I would buy 1,000 copies of your novel because of your valid. Oh gosh, thank you. You do not have to do that. Thank you. 1 copy will do. I appreciate it. I didn't skip the nice shirt guy. I just hadn't gotten to it yet. Okay. Yes. Who are they? Burgundy is right. Ask questions, but do recognize that the frame of a story, whatever that frame is, requires you to tell that story as well. What if we write a script set in the Stone Age? Well, the problem is either you're going to, and I know this because I've had similar type experiences, either you're going to have to translate their language, there have been a couple movies set in the Stone Age. You're going to have to translate their language into English or whatever language you're writing in, or you're going to have to figure out how to tell the story without language, without verbal language. And there are a couple of good ones. Well, there's a couple of bad ones and 1 or 2 good ones. Okay, yes, but most, the way that you tell a story when they don't have the access to language as we know it would be in terms of behavior, the actions they take, and the visuals. Oh, thank you, Moria. I appreciate that. I am very glad that you are here. If someday one of us, your followers, win an Oscar, can we buy you dinner? Yes. Yeah, sure. Thank you. I don't understand what you mean by why did you skip nice shirt guy? I've talked to nice shirt. I appreciate the shirt comment. The shirt is good. The comment is lovely. And we are all good. So I'm going to sign off now. Please, the things that I referred to, give me about 10 minutes. I will put links in the description. Thank you so much for these wonderful questions. It's been a lot of fun. I will see you next week. Go write something.